the task, the same. We have a sort of series of steps by which we need to work our way towards zero carbon. And we have a broad plan to 2020, how that might be done. But from 2020 to 2050, there is no plan. There's only the objective. So there's a huge amount of new thinking required to get to some of these targets. Every single lever is going to have to be pulled to hit that longer-term target. And what we're trying to do is look down the whole chain, because I'm interested, although government tends to look at operational energy only, I'm interested in embodied energy because that's what engages our supply chain. And of course, if you don't look at embodied, you get the wrong results sometimes. There are out there photovoltaic cells that take more energy to make than they can save over the whole of their working life. That's madness. And the kind of madness you get if you don't look at it embodied as part of the calculation. What I'd also like to do is to stop the demonisation of buildings as being part of the problem. You see the statistic over and over again, sometimes 40%, sometimes 50%, that buildings consume its energy. And it's like buildings are some kind of Godzilla stalking the face of the earth. They don't do special effects like that anymore, do they? But the idea is with giant buildings stalking the earth, consuming energy. They consume energy because that's where the people are. And if we talk about buildings as being the problem, rather than human behaviour as being a big part of the problem, then we will stay demonised and won't solve the problem. So, right down the chain, right through into use and indeed into removal at the end of the building's life is what we're looking at, what the real share of the carbon problem of construction represents. So the report that we're producing, I promise you, will not have a single polar bear in it. Well, it's not that kind of report. Nor will it be a sort of going backwards report. Paul Finch may remember the presentation made to Kay about a place called Oroville, the city of the earth needs. And it is not the city of the earth needs. This is a sort of zero consumption world, which is not where we're headed. So I don't think, apart from the fact that I don't have the figure for it, I don't think this is where the answer lies, in denial and in going backwards, or in any more just constantly preaching about the need. Instead, I think we need to turn this away from sort of Joni Mitchell concert or a sort of saintly act into what Stern said, which is that there's an economic imperative here, and actually we will be better off if we decarbonise than if we don't. Now, hands up anybody who thinks an economic prediction made over 50 years can be right to the tune of 0.3%. But nonetheless, what it is saying is that if all the assumptions are relative, we're not going to be a lot worse off if we do this. And of course, mankind as a whole is going to be a lot worse off. So, to me, what I'm looking at is how we make a business out of this, and how we develop business models that respond to it, and what the barriers in the way of it being a business are. I'd like to talk a little bit about that. There is a low-carbon transition plan, which is the government's main statement as to how the built environment and the broader environment will be decarbonised. And you don't need to read this, but basically it's heading towards zero carbon in all of our new buildings, and it's getting carbon out of our existing stock, which is the biggest challenge. But what's sort of exciting about it, if any of you read this, I'd be kind of surprised. But what's exciting about the low carbon transition plan is that almost every line of it speaks construction. Whether we're driving down emissions from the existing stock, whether we're improving the quality of our new buildings, whether we're getting carbon out of our own supply chain, whether we're building a new green grid system up to and including nuclear power, offshore power. Offshore power will be as big an industry as North Sea oil from a standing start. So there's a spectacular amount of opportunity here for this industry. An opportunity that I'd like to see us use in two ways: take the work and use it to improve ourselves. There is just too much going on. Having started the job on the 1st of December, I took a Christmas break and read between 2,000 and 3,000 pages of stuff just on carbon and on decarbonising. And one of the first questions I asked when I got into government is what's already happening on this front. So we formed a cross-Whitehall group, which by the way has turned out to be hugely collaborative. And the silo thinking that we all fear, not nearly as bad as you think. Everybody, of course, likes credit for their own work, but there is actually a great deal of cross-Whitehall engagement. But what they discovered when we got them in a room was how many people are doing how much, and too often the same thing. And I found 175 initiatives, either recently completed, commissioned by government, or done within government, or done by NGOs and addressed to government, just on carbon, not on broad measures of sustainability. So somebody in CLG said to me that they sort of had let 1,000 flowers bloom policy. But this is not helpful to those of us who need to understand where the business is coming from. So it needs sort of one of my favourite instruments to apply to, really, which is Occam's razor. We need to simplify and understand it. So as I said already, carbon itself is a simplifier, measuring just that rather than broader issues of sustainability. But we need to take all this work and decide what of it is helpful, and what of it points to our own future as an industry, and what we need to do as an industry, and how we need to plan and organise our businesses. So we need to get rid of complexity in the subject to the extent that it still produces the right answer. And we need to actually get rid of the whole lot of stuff that's going on and choose what will really make the difference. So part of the plan for the IGT is to say to government that we need what we would recognise as a programme management plan. We need to see this work coming towards us. We need to know that if you want a nuclear power station operational by 2016, and we do, it needs to start here. It needs to be commissioned and mobilised here. It needs to be designed here. You need to scope the work and choose an energy company here, and all the way back to the beginning. And by the way, if you wait till the end to think about the next thing, there'll be no skills to build it. So we need a programme management plan for every strand of the low carbon transition plan, every part of it. So the industry sees what's coming and it's visible to it. And the others, we need to dish it all out. And there are certain characteristics of a good plan. So we need an implementation plan, but we also need to develop a market around it that rewards effort and invention and innovation. We need a regulatory environment that we're persuaded has stability in it, but nonetheless has a constant trend that shows that if you invest in decarbonising, the floor won't be pulled away from beneath you when you're partway on the journey. And for some of those decisions, of course, like nuclear power, they're 40-year decisions. You do not want 5 years into the 10-year design process for nuclear power station to find they changed the rules. So some really good thinking about the kind of staircase of regulation that will produce the right answer. And then we need to mobilise the industry and train its skills and turn ourselves into new jobs.